Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest, reacting to the Toronto Raptors 109-102 loss to the Philadelphia 76ers, Riker. This is a tough one as obviously this team played phenomenal defense, but the Sixers came out throwing punches, and unfortunately the Raptors just could not throw a basketball in the ocean for most of this game. But Riker, what are your initial takeaways from this one?
Although this one's tough because the Raptors have traditionally never been a fantastic three-point shooting team. And when we were participating in the Sixers Mania halftime or first quarter podcast last game, they mentioned that the Raptors, they believed, somebody should fact check me on this, but the Raptors were actually seventh in the league this year in three-pointers made or three-pointer percentage as a team. So they're actually not a terrible three-point shooting team. But Ben, I don't know if you'd agree. To me, this was the reason that they lost. Defense was great, as you said, but if the shots aren't falling, it's hard to win.
Yeah, and that basically sums up today's NBA. And you got the Walmart hat out for the Toronto Raptors threes tonight because they just were not going down really until the last 3-minute stretch. And we'll talk about that stretch of the game later on. But Fred VanVleet tonight, obviously, we thought he'd come out in this one after getting snubbed from the All-Star selection. It makes sense. We're not here saying that it's a catastrophe, but you look at different players that made the cut. Fred certainly, especially in the last month or so, has outperformed a lot of guys at the deep bench, but you thought he might come out with a chip on his shoulder, ready to show out against the Philadelphia 76ers, particularly a Ben Simmons, who also, to be fair, has come on a little bit as of late, but I think Fred has had an overall better season in terms of statistics and bringing the Raptors out of the muck and that following that 2-8 start. But Simmons, to be fair, is the more talented and is the bigger defender. But Fred VanVleet steals and what he was doing tonight. I don't know if there's a crazy case. I know Ben Simmons is looking to be Defensive Player of the Year, but Fred VanVleet is an absolute thief right now. Whether it's Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, anyone comes in that paint, Fred VanVleet's just sneaking around that corner, ready to rip that ball away. But he did all those things tonight, but unfortunately the threes just were not going in from him. And 2 for 5 from the three-point line. I thought he missed a couple more shots, but 12 points, 8 assists, 4 of 14 from the field. I guess he did take a lot of these mid-range jumpers. And Riker, I wanted to get your question on this because it's weird seeing mid-rangers, those Jose Calderon off the screen shots in the modern NBA, but it seems like in the past 10 games or so, the Raptors have really reintegrated that back into their offense, and maybe it opens up the rest of the floor, but they don't seem to be that efficient for the team.
Mid-range.
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking? Mid-range shots?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who's shooting a ton of mid-range jumpers. Pascal Siakam has thankfully come away from the mid-range fadeaway pull. That seems to be his favorite shot at the beginning of the season. You have guys like Chris Boucher, who likes to live outside the three-point line. Norman Powell, he does a good combination of inside out. I think his game is probably the most polished, and I think he had the most points tonight at 24. I believe Pascal Siakam was 22. So maybe Fred VanVleet is taking more mid-range shots, but I don't know. I haven't seen it. Like, it hasn't jumped off the page to me as much as maybe you thought and just pointing it out. But I love your point on him getting a lot of steals recently, Ben, because my God, did he strip the ball a lot this evening. And ex-teammate DeMar DeRozan said about DeJounte Murray that he's not going to invite him in the house because I believe he had a career high in steals, and so it was just a little bit of a play on words there. But the same comment could be made about Fred VanVleet, who has his way with stripping big men when they're in the paint, and they should be intimidating when Fred's all of 6 foot tall and Joel Embiid's all 7'1", 7'2", barreling at him. But he's just confident, gets his hand in there, and unfortunately, they made the push at the end. I thought the defense, like you said at the beginning, was really good. It clamped in, but they need to convert, Ben. And when Furkan Korkmaz and Tobias Harris are hitting threes, Danny Green's getting fouled out at the perimeter, you're just letting up points by guys that really shouldn't be the people that are beating your team. Again, it's hard to win those games, Ben.
Riker, there's someone on the trade block right now that's pretty good at hitting those threes. We're going to make a video on it soon. Should we get I want to hear the chat. Should we get the Tingus Pingus trade wagon going? Should we get the Tingus Pingus tracker? Because I know his defense has been horrific this year, and we obviously want a good defensive center, but he's been a shot blocker in the past. He's nasty with those long range threes. I don't know. I'm throwing it out to the chat. We're gonna make a proper video on it, but that's just something to bring up there. But definitely, I think we've seen this Toronto Raptors team play for a long stretch of games now, and the roster certainly on the defensive end, things have tightened up. The energy, the ball movement, things are working out. They're playing like the regular Toronto Raptors team. That's why we're coming off a 4-game win streak. But it was glaring in the Minnesota Timberwolves game, glaring in this one, glaring in those 2 games against Boston and Soda. This team does go through very cold spells, and even in the game Sunday. And obviously when Fred and these guys are cooking, then they bounce back. But I do think the Toronto Raptors will likely be in the market for a bucket getter, a scorer. You're smiling there at the chat, I think.
I'm liking people's reactions to you saying Dingus Bingus. It shouldn't be that much enjoyment. Obviously, it's a hurtful game because we had about 550 people tuning in live to the victory against the Philadelphia 76ers, and we're at about 150 now, so I might as well hit the plug to say get into the like section regardless of your disappointment for this one, because the Raptors, they still have a lot of games to play. We're still above 500, thankfully. The Raptors have a good game against the Heat, who have been surging as of late. There's a ton of guys now on the trade block, and Andre Drummond, people getting released, such as DeMarcus Cousins, new people emerging on the trade scene, such as Ben so elegantly put it, Tingus Pingus. There's still excitement in Raptors land. There's no need to fear. And this game, when you have defense as solid as it was, I think that this would make for a fantastic playoff series, Ben. You know, if you sweep them, if you win every single game, you just come to expect that. You have to have the highs and the lows to make it true excitement down the stretch. And that's what I think we need to talk about is down the stretch, the final 3 minutes. What happened?
Well, Riker, that's going to be a segment. I know it's a little bit early for the segments, but tonight the Spicy P lays. Well, it's a stretch of game. Spicy P lays of the day. It's got to go to the Raptors in the last really 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes of this game. Obviously, it was stretched out, and by the very end, you knew it was over, but the team certainly made it interesting. I think they were down by, 14 or so with 2.5 minutes to go, but the Raptors, they came back, they kept fighting, they run that full court press, and you know, the shades of that Dallas comeback come back into your brain. Tracy McGrady hitting 11 points in like 30 seconds or something. The Raptors just make you believe anything's possible. And Danny Green had a classic full court pass right into the other team. Obviously, if people don't remember, that happened in Game 6 of the NBA Finals a couple years ago. So I thought the Raptors might be able to capitalize on a few of those plays. But Riker, what was going through your mind when this team was making that little run at the end there?
I thought it was all forlorn until it got to 6. All of a sudden, there was a steal or an attempt at a steal by OG on the baseline on an inbound pass that it was obvious it wasn't going to go in the Raptors' favor, but I thought it definitely could have swung the momentum had he just been a fraction of a second earlier to bring it back in. And you said it. I mean, there was bigger shots in NBA history. That offensive rebound, what was his name? Chris Bosh, Raptors legend, swinging it out to Ray Allen to bring force game 7 against the San Antonio Spurs. You mentioned the Tracy McGrady spur of points. The Raptors come back of the 40 against the Dallas Mavericks. Tingus Bingus, another shout out. He's getting a lot of love on this pod. But Ben, you know, at this point, when you're down 10, 15 points, there's only 20, 30 seconds left. You have one timeout. You can't reasonably expect to come back and win that. What frustrates me in these opportunities, and I don't want to get too low on the team because, again, let's just keep this fun. But what frustrates me is why can't you dial up the defensive intensity? Why can't you hit your threes when there's 4 minutes left, when there's 5 minutes left? Why do you need, Fred had a perfect steal. He passes it out to Chris Boucher, who just immediately fumbles the ball. Turnover. I believe it goes straight to Shake Milton, who hits a 3. That could have been a 4-point play for the Raptors, and instead it ended up being a 3-point play to bring it to 11 for the 76ers. So it's careless possessions like that when you're in the final closing minutes of the game that really just makes you feel, well, why did you put in all this effort if you're just going to go and throw it away for nothing, Ben?
Yeah, and Riker, obviously Nick Nurse has done a great job figuring out lineups, doing different things this season, getting this season back on track, because the schemes and stuff that he's been implementing have been great. But one thing that I'm surprised he doesn't implement more often is, especially this year, as for all the things that have been mentioned, everyone's saying in the chat and stuff, the offense does go through cold spells. And the Raptors really come out of those through their defense, through their energy, playing in the fast break, getting that momentum going. And I'm surprised at points maybe tonight in the third quarter when the Raptors were still really cold. They were hovering around 12 and 8 points within. Just throw on a full court press for 3 minutes, especially when Dwight Howard and these guys are out there on the court, or Joel Embiid is absolutely exhausted. You know he's not going to run up the court and post someone up super quick. Run one of those full court presses for even just a 2-minute stretch, just to throw a different look, to get the energy high, get the game going a bit faster. And Nick Nurse has done that at times, but I think he could be even less reluctant to throw one of those out there earlier in the game. So I know it's tough in actual NBA basketball to do that, but that's just my 2 cents on how the Raptors could sort of bounce back. But Ryker, final couple points in this. Pascal Siakam, 22 points tonight, 9 of 18, 1 for 6 from the three-point line, 7 assists, 6 rebounds. What were your thoughts on his performance tonight? Because I feel like he got his shot blocked at the end there by Embiid. I thought he really could have had a moment to take over and lead that momentum at the end there, but he still had a solid performance tonight.
He did, but you look at what jumps off in the box score, Ben. It's his 3-point shooting. So he either needs to figure that out or he needs to be more assertive down in the paint. Yep. No two ways around it. And that's the disappointing thing, because I thought that he achieved that in the last game, that he didn't settle. He didn't live outside the perimeter. He forced his hand and he drew fouls. And that's what we need from Pascal Siakam if we're going to win any of these series against the likes of Milwaukee or Philadelphia, any of the teams that have big, long defenders. You have to challenge them in the paint.
Yep, certainly. And it's interesting, and I want to give credit too before we swing into the really fun segments we got at the end here, but shout out to Doc Rivers, because I know he's gotten a lot of hate and stuff, especially after that Clippers just disaster last season. But even though he's not necessarily the greatest coach in the NBA, I'm not going to put him as number 1 or 2 or something like that, but he definitely did a really good job of firing up his team, getting them come back out in the start of this one, and really just amped up to get this win against the Toronto Raptors. He put Embiid in a lot of great situations to score down low. Obviously, the Raptors did a really good job at just helping in on him, but then that led Tobias Harris, and we'll talk about him later, Korkmaz, all these guys, super open. So I do want to give credit to Doc Rivers for making those adjustments, and when you compare that to a guy like Mike Budenholzer, who just runs the same thing over and over again to death, it's nice to see that sort of switch in coaching, because I just want to give a little bit of credit there, because I know he's a guy that gets hated on a lot. But if you don't have anything more you want to go into, because I know there's a really fun play we got to dive into next.
Take it away.
All right. So as we said, not all plays can be the spicy play of the day, and some just make you say, oh geez. And I think we might have had the oh geez play in Raptors history tonight. Aaron Baynes, the insurance pylon, he's been playing great as of late. Obviously, he's not, when you ask him to be a scorer and a Jonas Valanciunas type of guy down in the paint to score, that's not his role. But he's doing a great job, defense and stuff. Want to give some credit out to Aaron Baynes. But tonight, the ghosts were in the building, Ryker, guarding those shots. He threw up a floater, and it just spun back to him out of nowhere, and then he was hovering around it because he couldn't touch it. It would be a double dribble, and B dives down for it. Baynes is right there holding him off, and he chucks it right to Siakam, who bats it to Baynes, and then he doesn't really know what to do, so he just goes in and yams it home. It's hard to describe, but that play was pure chaos watching that out there.
Chaos. That's the perfect way to describe it. That's how I feel every time Aaron Baynes gets his hand on the ball, because I feel like he's not comfortable shooting when he's squared to the basket. He only likes to shoot when his back is to the basket, but ideally on some obscure angle, like maybe an 87 degree from the basket or a 58 from the basket, but certainly not squared and not directly back. He just loves to toss them up. My favorite OGs from this one, Leo Rautins, he was getting extremely frustrated at Dwight Howard pushing around, forcing his way underneath the basket to get offensive rebounds. And Chris Boucher, he's a slight guy. He's very slender framed. I think he embellishes a lot of things underneath the basket until he really figures out how to box out people. But Leo goes and says, you know what? I used to really like Dwight Howard, but now And I just love it when announcers let into a player like that. I thought it was really funny. It was Shaq S, who was obviously Dwight Howard's number one hater. But that was my OGs.
Yeah.
Anyways, Ben, it was quite the evening, but not all plays can be the OGs. Some just make you say, oh geez. I doubled it up.
Doubled up.
Not all
Some just
plays
make
are
you
the
say.
OGs.
Some just make you say the Damari Carroll Gold Star Award, and there was
Yeah,
a
I
lot
messed
of
that up.
these.
It's time for the one, the only, the Damari Carroll Gold Star Award. Again, we're having fun, Ben. It has to be this way when you just get kind of, I don't want to say humiliated, but it's a disappointing loss, to say the least. Thought that the Raptors could have stretched it to 5 in a row. Damari Carroll, as you said, they're in abundance. There was a lot of negatives of this evening, and thankfully we pushed it to the very end of the podcast. You know, I thought we touched on a lot of the positives, but it's that time of the evening. We have to say what went wrong. Ben, take it away.
Firstly, Ben Simmons is getting one for that scary play he made on Norman Powell. I get you're trying to get a block and stuff, but clearly he did not get up enough. Norman Powell was already in the air. He reached down, threw him to the ground, and when guys are flying around like that, you just know, obviously, if you don't have the jump, if you don't have the reach, even if you go up, you don't hit him just because to stop a play, because that's a super dangerous position, especially not even the playoffs, not even something like that. So Norm went crashing to the ground, and then we have a Damari Carroll regular size Gold Star Award for Simmons there, and then just a maximized one that's enlarged, engulfed for the referees for not calling something as blatant as that, and then coming back down and calling these weak touch fouls on Joel Embiid and Simmons and all this sort of stuff. Once again, the foul discrepancy was disgusting, and it's not like the Toronto Raptors are just chilling out, camping out, shooting threes, and being like, I don't know what sort of team, like the Houston Rockets. They're driving in possession after possession, and they're just not getting the calls. So it's tough to have discrepancies like that, but I don't know. I don't know if you have any more takes on that one right
Ben,
here.
15 team fouls for the 76ers, 20 for the Raptors, and yet the Raptors had 54 points in the paint to the 76ers 30. So however the math lines up there, I think we're slowly building a case because we don't like to bag on the referees. They're trained professionals. This is their career, is to call these plays. But night after night, the Raptors are in these huge gaps in terms of the amount of fouls called on them, and yet the amount of points that they're scoring in the paint. So it should eventually even out. It hasn't yet. I'm not calling or crying conspiracy. I'm just asking for a little bit more parity in the whistle, Ben. That's all that I want.
Yeah, and like obviously the Sixers came out and played really well. This game, you can make some arguments for some games over the course of this season. Raptors didn't lose this one because of the referees, but certainly momentum swingers and stuff, it does play a part. So it is what it is. We'll back up from that. Another gold star, Joel Embiid. Raptors are on their biggest run of the game. Joel Embiid hits a fadeaway three to get his momentum and stuff back. Just throwing that out there. That could have been an OGs as well. We had a lot of OGs, but one guy I do want to talk about, and he was getting flamed in the chat earlier, Riker, Matt Thomas. So leave your takes about Matt Thomas right now as we discuss them. We'll be scanning them as we talk, but people are asking how he's even an NBA player. He's a guy a lot of people were excited about. You and I were excited about coming into the season, especially with his ability to shoot threes and knock down those shots, catch fire. Had some great games last year, but he has just come out and really not been able to get open, which has been his issue his entire NBA career with the Toronto Raptors. And when he gets those looks, those ones that are completely open, he missed an open corner three tonight. He's passing them up, right? People are closing out. Terrence Davis, he's coming out ready to shoot, right? He's a guy, Chris Boucher to a lesser extent, a different role, right? He's a guy that always lets it fly. But TD has come out in these games and been ready to just fire them up, and they eventually went in. Matt Thomas is having guys close out to him, and they're 3 feet away from him, Riker, and he's hesitant. He's doing, his shoulders are getting tight, then he's trying to dribble and do these weird takes. I don't know what your take on Matt Thomas is, Riker, but definitely the Gold Star is playing again. Definitely a disappointment.
Yeah, it's all mental, Ben. I don't need to get into it. Everybody knows if you've ever played basketball half of the sport is confidence and
Yep.
just believing that you can make the shot. And if you're in a funk, then you're more likely to miss. However, the psychology and the actual physical form of shooting intersect, there is some science behind it, I'm sure. So I hope to see him rebound, because it seems like Nick Nurse is still intent to get him out there in little stretches. So hopefully he can come in and
Hit some
return to
shots.
form, or hit a shot. That's end of the day. That's what it is. But I don't want to stretch this one too long. Let's get into the very final segment. 2 minutes. Sound the alarm. We got a custom alarm for everyone that's mild on the ears. We promise. Hit it with them. Hit them with it. Wee-oo, wee-oo. Chirp, chirp, beep, beep. Toot, toot.
We got the sad Raptor noises for Raptors losses for the alarm. But this is the time you guys get in the chat. We want to hear your takes on this team, on this game, on the Toronto Raptors trade situation. Obviously, we have a game against the Heat tomorrow, so Porzingis Tingus podcast will be coming out a couple days later. So we want to hear your guys' takes right now. Powell and Baynes in a 2025 first pick for Miles Turner, Riker.
Again, we are in the camp that Indiana is very guard heavy, and somebody tried to argue that Justin Holiday is a small forward, so you're not going to include him in the guard conversation. But that was the most weak argument that I've ever seen in our DMs. So you're not trading away their prolific big man, regardless if they think that he wants to stay in Indiana long term, if you're trading back guards. And we don't have bigs that are marketable. So there's no trade that you can do with Indiana unless it's a 3-team deal to bring back Miles Turner.
Yeah, no, for sure. And do we even want a big at this point? Because I think the one thing, one of my takes as well, the biggest issue with this, the big man was, or the biggest worry, so to speak, was could we guard the Embiids of the world? Could we guard the Giannis Antetokounmpos? But the Raptors defense is fine. It's scoring we need. And honestly, in the modern NBA, that's scoring happens by your smaller players, your wing guys. So I'm not even sold that the Raptors need a big. Aaron Baynes is doing his job, being a pylon in there. And you know those vans that people live in and they put the pylons around it and it keeps the police away? I don't know if you're familiar with that strategy. That's like how loiters or whatever don't get away. That's what he's doing right now. He's locking up. He's that insurance pylon. So shout out Aaron Baynes. I think he's a solid.
Pause on that thought, because seriously, I think it's worth emphasizing. It's worth emphasizing that Joel Embiid did not beat the Raptors this evening. He scored 18 points on 23% from the field. He was 1 for 1 from 3. All of his misses were inside the arc, and it was predominantly Aaron Baynes that was guarding him. It was Furkan Korkmaz. It was Tobias Harris. It was Ben Simmons. It was Shake Milton. It was all the role players that were getting it done tonight for the Philadelphia 76ers. So I 100% agree with you. And how many wins in a row have the Brooklyn Nets got now? They're the worst rated defense in NBA history, and they're on a 5-6 game stretch, and they're beating the Lakers, and they're beating the Warriors. They're beating all these good teams because they have a fantastic offense. So I agree with you. I'm not necessarily sold that the Raptors need a big either.
Yeah, if we're trading
scoring big, Tingus
Pingus. But if we do make a trade, I think it's got to be for like a Jordan Clarkson type player that is fine on defense, not brutal, but gets a lot of buckets. Riker. Norm Powell hammer with the no call. Yeah, we talked about that. Tobias Harris had a revenge game tonight. This guy probably was a combined 2 for 256 against the Toronto Raptors from the field in the past 2 years, but tonight really turned it around. What were your thoughts on Tobias Harris actually hitting a shot on this team, Riker?
That's just gross. You can't. That's just gross.
Right? If we're losing to Tobias Harris, it is what it is. 3 real shots made by Embiid. I think the Raptors are good. We got some Tingus Pingus chants going on in the chat. We respect it. Mo Bamba is another names around out there. Lots of stuff, lots of names, lots of just news going around the NBA. Riker, we've been going for pretty long here, so we'll let people get to sleep. We'll let us sort of chill out, mentally prepare for the next game against Miami Heat, back to back. So tell your friends. We forgot to plug it earlier. We've made this segment, but we're on the road to 20,000 subscribers. So tell your friends. Tell them about the Raptors Digest. call him up. I don't know if you're, hit him on the Snapchat, hit him, text him, all that sort of stuff. Get us to 20,000 subscribers so we can just really hit that growth. Get in the like section, Riker. The Walmart hat, we got some crazy stuff coming with the Walmart hat with some segments. People are liking the new sort of formats, Riker. But if you guys want a Walmart hat, if you guys want more of this stuff, tell your friends to subscribe to Raptors Digest.
That's it.
Yep.
Finish it off there, Ben.
I respect it. The Walmart hat says everything. I gotta plug the Instagram, the TikTok, all that stuff. We have a disjointed ending, but we're